What's up guys, Asian here again with another dungeon guide video. This time we'll be going over Ruins of Mazzatun. This guide has been updated. This run is under the Morrowind patch, so you'll be seeing how different the changes are to Mazzatun, at least from the tanking perspective. This video will also show you how to sneak around all of the trash mobs in this fight. As you can see there, you're going to need to use invisibility pots. You're going to need to use 2 of them. If you want to avoid as many trash mob fights as you can. You can avoid more if you use more invisibility pots, but it's not entirely necessary. This is the first boss. This is Zatsu. Has a couple of mechanics here. This first one is he'll raise his mace in the air, jump into the air, and slam down and create sort of shockwave effects that come down afterwards once he lands. Second effect is he will throw stones at you just like the stone throwers in this dungeon. You'll just have to block through those. What I do as a tank is I also spam shields to help mitigate some of the damage that DPS are taking during that move. He also has a taunt move that will cause a bleeding effect on you. You'll take damage over time. It's not that severe. As long as you have a good healer, you'll be able to heal through that damage. We're going to go ahead and skip through the rest of the fight, as well as some of the unavoidable trash mob pulls in this next room here. Moving on ahead, this next portion after you beat this mob is the next kind of important thing you have to know. You'll see the green spice there, and you'll see that I used rapids before I picked up the spice. When you pick up the spice, it immediately drops all your stamina to 0. Can't run, can't do anything, it'll eventually slow you down. You can't use any of your abilities. You need to head to that geyser in order to get rid of it. You can use X to shake off the spice, which basically you drop the green circle on top of you, right where you are, and somebody else can pick it up. Believe there's a 12-second cooldown between when you shake it off and when you can pick it up next again. This mechanic is going to be very important in the second to last boss fight against Xal-Nur the Slaver. This is the next boss. This is Mighty Chudan. This is probably the boss that hits the hardest in this dungeon. He has a very large cleave attack. So you, as a tank, you're going to want to face him away from the group, and as the DPS and healer, you're going to want to stand behind him on the tail. This is the mechanic that you have to be aware of. He'll pick one person to charge at. You'll see 2 circles on your feet. A large circle and a small circle. When the small circle gets to the size of the large circle, that means he's going to charge at you. While he's preparing to charge, you need to find the Argonian underneath the lightning dome. And basically, if you put Chudan and that Argonian in a line, you want to stand between it. So that way, when he does his charge move, he also kills the Argonian that is underneath that lightning bubble. His very damaging move, even on the tank, is a spit move that you just saw there. That spit move is pretty damaging. You're going to basically need to spam shields, and the healer is going to need to try their damnedest to keep you alive while you're spamming spamming your shields. The good thing is this fight isn't very long. You'll probably only have to deal with the spit maybe 2 or 3 times here. Our healer unfortunately disconnected. So while we did get close to killing him, it did not work out for us in the end. So we're just going to go ahead and skip over our next pull, since we've already explained the mechanics. Nothing to really be concerned about. If you're the tank, it's just that one spit move that can do a pretty hefty amount of damage. DPS and healer, you just got to be aware of that charge move because he targets somebody at random. So you will never know who he's going to charge until he charges. A good way to know when he's going to charge is you'll hear an Argonian say a line. That's when you know it spawns, which means Chudan's going to charge probably a few seconds after you hear that line. I'm going to go ahead and skip through the rest of these unavoidable trash mobs. If you use invisibility pots, you can actually skip this entire section here just using your pots. But sometimes it's a lot faster just to kill them because there is a 45-second cooldown between when you use invisibility pots, and you only get 12 seconds. This room is normally unavoidable. However, there is a trick you can use to completely bypass this. If you go over here to this tree, you can actually climb up the roots and basically jump up there and skip the entire pull for that room. It is a bit tricky to get, but you can get to it. As you can see there, it wasn't particularly difficult, just knowing when to jump and how to jump. So we're just going to go ahead and skip over this part here where our healer's having a little bit of difficulty trying to get up himself. Get him past, go through the door. Again, green spice, using rapids before you pick it up is very useful because you still get that speed boost. Once you get past that green spice, you're going to have this room here. Use this specific route to avoid pulling the mobs. In this section, you can't go up the little ramp there. You will pull the mobs if you decide to jump up on the ramp. You need to go up the hill on the side there. Otherwise, you will end up pulling the mud crabs and that troll. If you do happen to pull them, they're not too bad. The troll does have a self-heal that you need to interrupt as the tank. And the mud crabs are a little bit hardier than your standard mud crabs, but they're still mud crabs, so they're pretty easy to kill. But once we clear out the accidental pull, we'll continue on through the dungeon. So when you get to this part, instead of going straight right, head straight around the tree there. Be careful not to touch the orange gloop. It applies a very serious dot on you. It's quite damaging. The healer's gonna have to work overtime to make sure you don't die from that. Head underneath these roots, go up the stairs. You need to sneak here in order to avoid pulling the troll. Hug as close as you can to the left side there, and then you can go through the door. This room here is also avoidable. You will need to use invisibility pots, although you don't necessarily need to. I've done it without using invisibility pots. You sneak, use your invisibility pots, and just run all the way up to the door. You have, I believe, 12 or 13 seconds there to use your invisibility pots. So that's plenty of time for you guys to get over there. For Xal-Nur, you're going to want to slot Rapids as the tank. Because he does have that green spice move that we discussed earlier. Rapids is going to be very useful for this fight. So before you start off, if you haven't already, assign your DDs. One is going to be starting off running the spice, the other one's going to release the Wamasu during the spit phase. Xal-Nur has a couple of interesting moves and quite a unique aggression mechanic. So at 75%, 50%, 25% health, he will spit up spice. One of the damage dealers is going to grab it first. This is when the tank's going to use rapids. You're not going to be able to run it all the way. DPS is going to have to shake it off. Tank will take it the rest of the way to the geyser. It's going to be in one of those two pools, either the one we just spawned on or the one directly opposite you. Xal-Nur has a couple of moves you got to watch out for. He has a stomp move right there. Has some lines there. He has a charge move. He will target a random person with his charge attack. You're going to have to block it. If the tank can put himself between Xal-Nur and whoever he's targeting, then he'll be able to stop that move. When he does it, anybody who's in melee range will be feared away. You're going to need to use break free and get out of that. After he charges, he will basically reset his aggro. You're going to need to re-aggro him as the tank. He has a large conal scream move. He has a large pound move right there, you see. And you'll notice the trolls, every time he spits up, he'll spawn some trolls. When he does his spit move, the DPS who's running will need to run, and the other DPS is going to have to release one of the Wamasu. That will take care of the archers that spawn during the spit phase. Unfortunately, the Wamasu will not kill the trolls, so you're going to have to deal with the trolls. Either taunt them and bring them close to Xal-Nur so your DPS can AoE them down, or just avoid them altogether. Using rapids in this fight really does help the spit phase, get rid of it faster. That's particularly important because archers will continue to spawn during that spit phase. This is the calendar room. You can skip a large portion of it. However, if you're going for the achievement, obviously you don't want to skip it. If you are going for the achievement, basically what you have to do is you have to match up the symbols on the circular calendar on the floor there with the locks. Match them up. If you hit the right one, then the Argonian who is captured there will be able to go free. If you get it wrong, then they will be subjected to the amber plasm and go mad. Regardless, you have to fight mobs between every single button that you push. So we're going to try to skip through all of the 6 poles at once. So the trick is to come over here, and basically all 4 of you need to push the button all at once. That'll basically spawn 4 of the waves, and since the waves are on a timer, by the time you finish the first 4 waves, there's a very good chance the 5th and 6th waves will have already spawned, and then you basically line of sight them over to this corner here and AoE them down. So you see we messed up there. He didn't call out the time, so only he hit it. But on that other switch, all 4 of us put it at the same time, and you can see there 4 mobs were pulled. We got the 5th one on the timer, and then the 6th one, we were a little bit too quick for that one, so we had to wait a little bit for that one to spawn. Yeah, I'll train him over as soon as I can. This is the final boss here. This is Treeminder Na-Kesh. She is the final boss in this fight. Has a lot of very dangerous mechanics, particularly post-Morrowind patch. First one there is Totem. That Totem will drain resources. The closer you are, the more resources it'll drain, and it'll eventually drain everybody's resources if it's up long enough. So when it's up, you need to target it right away, burn it down as quickly as you can. Occasionally, she will throw down the amber plasm. The idea is for the tank or one of the DPS to grab the amber plasm because it will empower the mobs that you see here. On hard mode, he will spawn 1 root mason and 1 stone shaper. You're going to want to take care of those as quickly as you can. The stone shapers can be stunned with crystal frags and chains, so if you see them using their stone throwing move, make sure to crystal frag or chain them so that way the amount of time spent is mitigated. As you see there, at certain health intervals, she will spawn the bosses that you faced, specifically Mighty Chudan and Xal-Nur. I believe it's 66% and 50%. She will spawn Mighty Chudan and Xal-Nur respectively. This is the other mechanic here. She will randomly target 1 player. Doesn't you see me a pattern, and you will see one of the statues is highlighted. For the 3 of the players, for the player that she selected, all the statues are highlighted. Normally, the 3 players can activate a synergy that will only highlight that specific statue for the person who has the statues. However, on hard mode, you do not have access to the synergy, so that you all as a group will need to move to that statue, and so that way the person can take it down. This is Xal-Nur. As you can see here, there's a lot of RNG that can come into effect. Sometimes you'll get statues when a boss is spawning. Sometimes you'll get totem when the boss is spawning. Sometimes you'll get totem and statues at the same time. Sometimes the healer will get statues when there's a totem up. Sometimes the ads will still be spawning when the statue's up. There's a lot of RNG that goes into effect here, so a fair portion of this fight and how well you do is dependent on RNG. This clear, we had fairly good luck with RNG. We also had a very good group as well. Ruins is definitely a DPS check. If you don't have high group DPS, then you definitely aren't going to be able to get past this dungeon here. So we got past Xal-Nur. From here on out, she won't spawn any more of those bosses. Ads will still spawn, she'll still do the totem, she'll still do the pillars. And she's going to go into a burn phase at 35 or 30%. During the burn phase, basically what happens here is she will basically create a pinwheel of red AoEs throughout the fight. While she's in that burn phase, she can still summon totems, she can still assign people statues. So this is the burn phase right here. One strategy to keep in mind as the tank, if the healer does happen to get statues, he won't be able to use any of his healing abilities. So when that happens, it's a very good idea to keep the support ultimate barrier, keep that slotted. When the healer has statues, once you're all gathered up by that statue, drop your barrier. It'll help keep your DDs and yourself alive during while the healer is trying to get rid of that statue. Something else to keep in mind here, other skills you can use. For example, if you are a warden, you can try using Polar Wind, or you can use Vigor if you are a DK tank. There you have it. That's Ruins of Mazzatun. Hard mode. Hope this guide helps, and I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.